Call the September 2023 meeting of the Finance Committee of the MTA to order. Good afternoon, everyone. The enormous number of people in the audience. I feel like maybe there'll be more people on the live stream somewhere. Okay, David.
Yes.
How many public speakers do we have, sir?
We have 5 members of the public speaking today, 2 in person and 3 virtual. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware there'll be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. Our first speaker is David Kupferberg, followed by Alida Dupree.
David Kupferberg, Vice President of Bus Advocacy, Passengers United. The MTA subway and bus network has the highest base fare in the contiguous 48 states. This was done after Governor Kathy Hochul said to federal lawmakers that fare and toll increases for 2023 and 2024 were, quote, off the table, unquote. But there is hope. The MTA should endorse Bill S4024/A4122, currently dying a slow death in committee. Not only would the bill allow the MTA to roll back the fees and fare and toll increases, fares and tolls would be kept stable up to FY 2026, plus the free money the MTA would receive for doing so. Instead of thinking that I am beating a dead horse, the MTA should send a message to their benefactors that the fare and toll increases effective August 2023 should not have happened. I have to concur with former MTA Chair and CEO Richard Ravitch. Congestion pricing would generate needed revenue for the MTA, but less than the proposed $1 billion per year. Will the MTA have balanced budgets for the next 5 years? Don't you believe it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Alida Dupree, who will be followed by Christopher Greif.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Neil Zuckerman. Alida Dupree, for the record, she and her with Team Folds. I'm going to talk about some of the, I guess, mechanical and technical issues of finance. We're going to see change in how money is transferred from consumer to agency across the country. And with the very good work of Omni, which I'm using on a daily basis with reduced fare, transit is going more and more toward micropayments, otherwise known as small ticket. And that involves, with certain types of credit and debit cards, varying types of fixed swipe fees and percentages. There's some other transit agencies maybe about a decade ago that were kind of burned a bit, if you will, when confronted with the costs of processing micropayments. And a lot has changed, but I don't want micropayments to be the undoing of this very good work. So I've read about concepts, I think the word is aggregation, because I make micro purchases on the Apple application store, I guess they call it. They don't post them immediately, but they'll aggregate them, and then after a couple of days, they'll combine them. And it reduces their swipe fees. Is this something perhaps that we could do here? But could it cause customer service issues and contacts with people not understanding the processes? These are things to think about so we can advance the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Christopher Greif, followed by Charlton D'Souza.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christopher D. Greif, and just to be very clear, I am very glad to see the fare is, where it is right now, but I'm not here to talk about the subway fare. I'm here to talk about the railroad fare. As you know, the combo ticket, that's where it is right now. If I want to go from Mineola, Nassau County, to Grand Central, then from Grand Central to Poughkeepsie, it does not show the reduced fare price. I am asking the MTA to please do something about please putting in a reduced fare price for seniors and people with disabilities. As well, it should be on the app and in the machines as well. It is extremely important so customers can travel where they like to go and during the fall season to go apple picking or enjoy the exploring of the history of New York as well. That is extremely important as well. Also, I am very glad to see that we do have the city tickets and the doesn't matter if it's $5 or $7, but it needs to be more advertising in the community. But with finance, we need to make sure that all our fares and information is everywhere in the region. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Charlton D'Souza, followed by Jason Anthony.
Good afternoon, everyone. Charlton D'Souza, President of Passengers United. So I agree with everything that Christopher said. Yes, we do need a half fare, combo ticket. That's one. But also, let's not forget about. So there was a big presentation today done at the New York City Transit Committee meeting about Omni. What was left out of that presentation was B-Line buses in Westchester and NICE, Nassau Intercounty Express. We still don't have Omni on those systems. And I understand everyone wants to get the, Omni on the air train. Okay, we need that desperately, yes. But what about NICE bus? And the reason why so many Southeast Queens commuters are not using Omni, like me, because I use a MetroCard. And I remember a month ago, the team at the MTA helped me replace my 30-day MetroCard, and everyone was asking me, why are you still using a MetroCard? I'm using a MetroCard because it's easier, because it's accepted on NICE bus, B-Line bus, and, as an advocate, I go all over the place. I'm in Westchester, I'm in Nassau County, so you need flexibility. So when Omni is installed, and I also think they should put some of those Omni vending machines in Nassau County, strategically at Long Island Railroad stations, because that's where the bulk of the people in Southeast Queens, I would say Nassau, especially Westchester, they tend to gravitate towards those commuter stations. And we just have to make using the MT simple and easy. One thing I did want to find out, why is it that with the RIOC, problems with the Roosevelt Island tram and the subway being shut down there, why is it that people have to pay to use the tram when the subway is a shuttle service? I don't think that's right. I think that should be free. I think the Q102 should be free, and the Roosevelt Island station should be free, as well as 21st Street Queensbridge. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Our final speaker is Jason Anthony. Our final speaker is Jason Anthony. With his absence, Mr. Chair, that concludes the public speakers.
All right, thank you, David, and I hope everyone had a good summer. I think the MTA certainly has from a financial perspective. It is clear that the breeziness of our agenda today is part of that. Progress on debt costs, things ameliorating a significant amount has, and continued improvement on ridership certainly has helped. And you'll find that in the budget watch and the finance watch as we go through. Can I have approval for our July 17th minutes, please? A motion. Thank you, sir. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments, deletions, corrections? Thank you, Andrew. That is quite a testament to the stenography skills of our staff. Sometimes it works. Okay. All in favor say aye. Opposed, abstentions. Minutes approved. Work plan. I don't think there's any changes to work plan, so we'll just skip over that. David, budget watch, please.
Certainly. Thank you. Results are for operations through August and subsidies through September. These are measured against the mid-year forecast. Key takeaways this month are farebox and toll revenue are favorable, both for August and year-to-date. Ridership dipped below the McKinsey ridership projections in July and August, but did rebound during the month of August. Expenses are below the forecast and remain under control. Debt service savings reflect management actions, and subsidies through September are 1% below budget, although this may be timing related. Farebox revenue was $4 million, or 1% favorable in August, and through August was favorable by $36 million, or 1%. Farebox revenue through August, however, remains $542 million, or 28% less than the first 8 months of 2019. Toll revenue was on target in August and was $8 million, or 0.5% favorable year-to-date. Operating expenses were $54 million, or 4% favorable in August, and year-to-date they were $256 million favorable, or 3%. Year-to-date, 19% of this favorability is due to favorable payroll and health and welfare costs due to vacancies, including the additional overtime to cover for those vacancies, and 9% was due to lower electric power expenses. The remainder of the favorable operating expenses were predominantly timing related. Overtime was $27 million, or 37% unfavorable in August, and was $145 million, or 24% unfavorable year-to-date. Overruns are primarily due to vacancy and absentee coverage. At Transit, where most of the unfavorable variance has occurred, about $73 million of Transit's $140 million year-to-date unfavorable variance is due to vacancies, which is offset by New York City Transit payroll savings of $100 million year-to-date. Debt service was $3 million favorable, or 1% in August, reflecting lower than budgeted variable rates, investment income, and timing related to liquidity and remarketing costs, and partially offset by higher than budgeted issuance. Year-to-date debt service was $23 million, or 1% favorable, due to the lower than budgeted variable rates, the investment income, and timing related to debt service. Subsidies were $41 million unfavorable year-to-date through September, or 1%. This excludes MTA aid, which has not yet been received this month. This primarily reflects a $62 million, or 4% unfavorable result for the payroll mobility tax and an $8 million, or 3% unfavorable result for the for-hire vehicle surcharge. These are partially offset by real estate transaction taxes, the MRT, and the urban taxes, which are favorable by a combined $22 million, or 4%, and the petroleum business tax, which was $7 million, or 1% favorable. The unfavorable payroll mobility tax result may be timing related, and we will continue to monitor the receipts. Taken together, the operating results through August and the operating budget subsidies through September, these results are favorable by $282 million against the mid-year forecast, or 8%. And that concludes Budget Watch.
Questions on Budget Watch? Two for you, David. One, on real estate transactions, seems like we're tracking pretty well the budget. How are we feeling about the real estate economy here in New York relative to?
We are tracking relative to what we put into the mid-year forecast, but I just want to remind everyone that we reduced the forecast from the adopted budget. Right now, I think we did get it correct the way things look right now.
Good. And then secondly, on operating expenses, I mean, having a 2.5% favorable year-to-date is actually a pretty good guy to have, and a sizable percentage for an organization of our size. Do you think that's sustainable, or are we going to see a timing change reverse that?
Most of the timing changes in materials and supplies and other operating professional service contracts. Until we dive deeper into them, we know how much they're going to spend in 2023. I would assume that it will fade away, but I don't think we should count on it. But I think we may see some of it turn out to be a real savings.
Okay, good. Well, look, I think we should all be glad if anyone has a chance to look at the McKinsey numbers versus actuals. We continue to see a benefit to those riding on non-commutation tickets. That's sort of the benefit of why revenue is ahead of ridership. That's a really good thing for us. I mean, a change in ridership actually works maybe for financially at least in our favor. So thank you for those charts and very helpful.
Sure, you're welcome.
Okay, Olga, are we up for Finance Watch?
Good afternoon, everyone. In today's Finance Watch, we're reporting results of the sale of $370 million of Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority general revenue bonds, which we closed last month. Proceeds from this transaction were used to finance approved bridge and tunnel projects and to refinance $70 million of TBTA outstanding bonds for net present value savings of approximately $5 million, or 6.6%. This successful transaction was led by WB Book Running Senior Manager Siebert William Schenk, LLC, together with three special core senior managers, Rice Financial Products Company, a certified MBE firm, Drexel Hamilton LLC, a certified SDVOB firm, and Stern Brothers, also an MBE firm. Let me pause and see if there are any questions on the transaction.
Any questions on Finance Watch?
I have another piece.
Well, you're asking for questions on Finance Watch, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, not Finance Watch, just on
Oh,
the transaction.
Fine. Keep going then, Olga, sorry.
Okay. In addition to the deal, I wanted to give the committee a quick update on the status of federal and city funding for our capital program. Over the summer, our capital funding management team, led by Acting Director Tiana Grimes, submitted a total of $2.76 billion in federal grant applications. In addition, later this fall, we expect to secure $1.7 billion of city funding for our capital program. The $1.7 billion is on top of $1.3 billion that we already received from the city. And the receipt of the $1.7 billion, on which we working currently, will fully satisfy the city's funding obligation for the current capital program. Tiana and her team worked really hard on this funding package, and I want to acknowledge their hard efforts as well as efforts of our federal and city funding partners.
And can I ask a question? We expect to get the city capital money in September when they do the commitment plan, November. When will we get the city capital money?
The city funding we continue to work on.
Okay.
It will be secured later this fall, and then there is several months before we can get those money in-house.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess a couple comments. We want to talk about this because, every year, we do get federal grant money, and it's at a greater level now with the IIJA. But importantly, the money just doesn't flow in. We have to, we have under Olga and her team, Tiana and so forth, there's a very lengthy process with the feds to actually get the obligation authority into grants that then we can then go and commit against projects. So it's always, kind of a race, and the calendar starts over to every year get that, $2.7 billion put into, or ready to be put into grants. So, want a recognition of the team on that. And the other piece with the city, remember the city it was lined up to authorize to commit to $3 billion in capital projects for 20 to 24, and we have a good relationship with the city where we plan to enter into letter agreements with them committing the remaining $1.7 billion. So this city is very much on schedule or ahead of schedule in committing their $3 billion. But it is a pretty time-consuming, lengthy process for the staff to get all these, all the grants in place so the money actually will be able to flow to projects.
Besides being lengthy, is it fraught, meaning there's a chance money does not flow, or does it just happen to be a bureaucratic task?
Doesn't it have to do with I'm sorry to interrupt, but the city budget process, right? They started the fiscal year in July, and then the commitment plan in September, November, no?
Yeah, so this is a little bit about commitment. So, yes, the city has authorization to commit to projects, which then it gets financed in their capital plan, so they'll issue debt to eventually pay for it. But with the city, it's a process of identifying all the projects that they're eligible to fund to get it to a stage where we know the costs and it can be committed, and then entering into the agreements with the city on almost on a project by project basis. And the same thing with the feds. It's not fraught with a lot of risk. If it didn't happen, our obligation authority would carry over to the next year. But it's a process. If you remember, we kicked off in the beginning of the year, with the board authorizing hearings to take place for all the projects that we funded with federal dollars. And then once that happens, then it's, working with C&D and others, project by project, turning that broad congressional obligation authority into specific grants for specific projects.
So
David, please. Oh,
Sorry. So when Kevin says it's a lengthy process, it's a year-round process, right? We
It
start
starts all over
early
again.
in the fiscal year. We go through public hearing process, then we put together grant applications, then we transmit over the summer, then they're approved and executed. So that, it takes, almost 3/4 of a fiscal year to kind of get this done.
David, please.
Yeah, have we factored in potential risks of administration change and congressional change, that these obligations may not be fulfilled if there's a significant political shift?
Right, so right now what we have planned in is the higher authority provided under IIJA, which they approve their transportation programs or.
You may want to explain that acronym.
The bipartisan infrastructure law that increased the authorization amount. That's usually authorized, I think, is it in six-year cycles or whatever, and there's clearly annual appropriation risk, but usually the transportation programs get reauthorized. So I think what'll be a question is for the next capital program, will we assume that the federal dollars that are available go back down to a lower level versus getting reauthorized at the current higher level?
Great. Any questions for Finance Watch in particular? Any other questions? No. Olga, any commentary on the rate environment you want to provide to us? Any views on what's going on there?
Sure. Just, I guess, as a quick market update. I would say that, and you can see it probably if you look at the helpful bond and note rate trackers that we have in Finance Watch. Over the summer and over the past few months in general, I would say that we largely experienced kind of sideways movements in rates, no significant up and downs. Again, in this period, we executed 2 transactions, TBTA bond sale I just spoke about, and PMT bond, which we reported earlier in the summer on. So it's roughly the same interest rate environment. We are experiencing a slight inversion, meaning that short-term rates are actually higher than rates in 5 years and 10 years, and then rates go back up higher again in the 30-year spot. And the deal we executed in the summer, Finance Committee members might remember this, that actually took advantage of that inversion in the curve when we issued, I think, 7 and 10-year bonds. So overall, similar market conditions currently.
All right, good. Thank you. Boring is good, I guess, in this case.
Yes, it
David,
is.
over to you, all agency and headquarters items.
Thank you. The first item is simply the July financial plan, which is included in the agenda to allow members of the public to speak to it during the public comment period. The second item on page 18 of the committee book seeks approval to establish a not-to-exceed budget of $385.1 million and execute the following items to finalize the procurement of an owner-controlled insurance program known as an OSIP for awarded projects covering the period of September 30, 2023 to December 31, 2025, the capital program for New York City Transit, Long Island Railroad, Metro-North, and the Small Business Development Program. Placement of the primary OSIP insurance policies with Liberty Mutual and the excess liability policies with a consortium of underwriters from London, Bermuda, and domestic markets for $104 million. Authorization to place the OSIP's builder's risk policy with Star, and the railroad protective liability policy with Balanced Partners for $19.75 million. Entry by First Mutual Transportation Assurance Company, FIMTAC, which is MTA's captive insurance company subsidiary, into an agreement with Chubb establishing a collateral trust that secures MTA obligations to pay the self-insured portions of workers' compensation and general liability claims for $118 million. Establishment of deductible reimbursement policies within FIMTAC for payment of the self-insured portion of workers' compensation, general liability, and the builder's risk claims, and allow FIMTAC to manage the safety claims administrative expenses of the OSIP program for $132 million. Execution of a broker incentive for Alliant Insurance Services for $4.25 million, and Alliant Brokerage Services for $7.1 million. Kevin, I don't see Laudwin here. Do you have any further? Oh, Laudwin is here. I apologize. There you are. I'm not sure if Laudwin has any further comments on this. And if you do, I would say come up to the table.
Good afternoon. I'm Lordman Pemberton, Acting Deputy Director of Risk Insurance Management. I'm going to jump around here, and as you know, OSIPs are an alternative risk strategy where the owner, in this case MTA, buys insurance for all of the contractors performing work on its behalf. Since contractors pass their insurance costs on to the MTA, it's smart for us to use our economy of scale and buying power to negotiate larger limits, better prices for insurance. So this OSIP program, as discussed, will cover 229 selected projects for a total of $8.5 billion, awarded in the second half of 2023 until December 2025. Projects include, in this package, CBCT modern signals and ADA stations, along with other agencies, among all other agencies except B&T. The coverages will provide for each contractor, subcontractor of every tier working on the projects with uniform statutory workers' compensation, as you mentioned. Commercial general liabilities are upwards of $200 million. Railroad protective liabilities are $10 million per occurrence. Builders' risk liabilities are $100 million per project limit, including flood for 6 years, non-cancelable except for non-payment of premium or non-compliance with safety recommendations. In December 2021, MTA Board approved a panel of insurance brokers that would participate in a mini RFP to market the OSIP program to insurance carriers domestically and internationally. The brokers was Marsh, Alliant, and Willis. In May 2023, the MTA started its broker selection for what we call OSIP Package 2. In July 2023, based on the evaluation performed by the selection committee, Alliant was tasked to market a list of projects included in Package 2 to the insurance markets. The result of this effort were insurance costs secured at 4.53% of construction value, netting a $210 to $295 million real savings to the MTA based on a range of 7 to 8% for contractors' insurance costs. At this time, I would like to acknowledge the support of MTA C&D senior management and the BSC who worked very, very diligently on this procurement. Thank you.
Kenny, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so bottom line, this is great news. This is a continuation, and I think Jamie talked about it in Capital Committee. This is a continuation of where, a couple of years ago, insurance for capital projects, we were seeing very high numbers, 7 to 8%. We aggressively marketed last year and got it down to 5.3% for $3.5 billion. This will insure $8.5 billion of projects, and we got that number down to about 4.5%. So the 2-year effort will essentially, versus that 7 to 8% cost if we were, if individual contractors were buying the insurance, will provide about $400 million in savings, which just means more capital dollars available for construction rather than, paying pass-through insurance costs. So, Laudwin and C&D work together with our brokers to market it, and, structured in a way where, I know FemTech is on here all the time, and you guys always wonder what FemTech is, but FemTech came in and provided, our captive provided insurance to fit best with the marketplace to get the overall lowest structure.
I want to thank Board Member David Jones for acknowledging the quorum we need him for and staying. So we're gonna move this meeting to third gear here, because we're not going that fast. Anyway, can I have a motion to approve the OSIP package as described?
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Comments, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. David?
The third item is for station maintenance billings for 2023. And just to be very brief, this is an information-only item. It usually goes in May. We neglected to put it in. The station maintenance bills are based upon statutory regulations. It goes up by the CPIW every year. All the bills did go out, even though the information wasn't presented to you. We have received all our payments. And in November, they'll report on the fact that we have received all our station maintenance payments already. And that's the end of my items.
And everyone is paid, is what you're...
Everyone is paid.
Well, that really is
And
wonderful.
their inflator was just under 4% based on.
Okay, excellent. All right, Lizette, our Chief Administrative Officer, you have the floor then for other items of interest, please.
I'm wearing my hat as Acting Chief Procurement Officer with 3 items this month for MTA headquarters for Finance Committee approval in the estimated amount of $19 million. These actions are found in the Finance Committee book on pages 27 through 37. The first action is a modification to extend a miscellaneous procurement contract with ACI Worldwide for licensing, maintenance, and support of Base 24 software. Base 24 is a contract for the implementation of the automated fare collection system, now used as the main payment engine to process credit and debit transactions for the transit MetroCard sales. It's used by transit to authenticate, route, and authorize credit, debit, financial transactions. MTA IT has determined that it would be cost prohibitive to reconfigure the AFC system to use any other credit and debit transaction software. Doing so would involve significant risk, especially since the implementation of the Omni project, which will ultimately replace the Base 24 software, is underway. The 5-year extension is estimated at $3.4 million. The second action is a supplemental agreement to extend a personal services contract with Cigna Health and Life Insurance Company for 15 months to continue to provide dental preferred provider organization and dental health maintenance organization services to the MTA on behalf of the New York City Transit and MAPSTOA. The extension is necessary to allow time to complete the solicitation process for a renewal contract. While holding the pricing for the balance of 23, Cigna has proposed an increase to the premiums approximating 50% effective January 1, 2024. We engaged a third-party consultant to evaluate the reasonableness of Cigna's price proposal. In addition to increased premium usage during the course of the original contract, a market survey completed by Mercer shows that Cigna's extension rates are 29% lower than the rates from similarly situated providers.
That's good.
The estimated amount for this renewal is $9.2 million. And the third and final action is the award of a competitively negotiated personal services contract to SenseMakers LLC for the continued provision of design, development, and delivery of security and emergency response training courses, workshops, and exercises for MTA employees. The training is made mandatory by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and prepares employees to possibly prevent a terrorist attack from occurring by recognizing behaviors, situations that may be components of attack planning, and to react to those situations. Among the 4 proposals received, SenseMakers, the incumbent, was deemed technically qualified to perform the work, and based on both the technical and cost criteria, the selection committee unanimously found SenseMakers to be the most qualified and able to provide the best value in performing the services. The current contract with SenseMakers will expire at the end of the month. The new contract term is 36 months with 2 one-year options for a total not to exceed amount of $6.3 million. I submit these procurement actions for the Finance Committee approval.
Thank you. And Paige, you're okay with us taking this as a group? Yes. Okay, fine. Can I have a motion then to approve these 3 heterogeneous? Thank you, David. Second.
Second.
Any comments on any of them? Sir?
This is for the, yes, this is for the dental insurance provision, and it's an extension for 18 months to allow us to competitively solicit this. We engaged a third-party vendor to do an analysis to see if their price prices or that increase was fair and reasonable. And it came back that it was, for a couple of reasons that are outlined in the staff summary in a little more detail. But ultimately, when they looked at the premiums and the usage of the benefit, it far exceeded what the estimates were. So the costs were the usage was a lot higher. In addition, when they did a market survey for competitors, the price proposal that they put forward was still 29% below their next most competitive company. So for those two inputs, the price was deemed fair and reasonable.
I mean, Jerry, you're asking a really important question, which I asked the same in the pre-briefing. I think the fundamental question is either Cigna massively underbid, or the employee base having not had.
Yeah.
Well, they either did not ever assume they're going to have as much dental care as they took on, or the pricing was very low. Either way, the insurance vendor has said we can't do this going forward. So we got a short-term coverage back to the current low price, and then they asked us to price them up at market for the duration, and then we're going to have to rebid it, and that's a whole other conversation.
Right.
Other thoughts on that? Questions? So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, Lizette, back to you.
We have an informational item.
Wait, no, we got real estate items.
No, sorry, yes.
What? Oh, Blanc is here. Sorry. Yes. Aww. Aww. This is easier duty, isn't it?
That's true.
Okay. All right. Thank you, David. Sorry to interrupt, Lizette.
No
Continue.
problem.
Thank you.
There are no Metro North or Long Island Railroad items this month, but there is an informational item on page 38 of the committee book for New York City Transit, which was approved by its respective committee, requesting board approval to modify the sole source miscellaneous service contract awarded to Pretect, Inc. to perform prognostic maintenance services for New York City Transit Department of Buses and MTA Bus Company to increase the quality of buses monitored from 1,500 to 5,000, extend the term of this test and evaluation by 1 year, and add an estimated $3.3 million for expected expenditures.
All right. Great. And then I think we have consolidated financial reports, page 39 of the committee book. Lizette, do you have anything else? There seems confusion on the right side of the. Good? Good. All right. Mr. Florio, over to you, real estate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real estate has 6 action items for consideration and approval. There are 2 administrative action items, both for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. The first item is a second amendment to the temporary policy permitting the renegotiation of existing leases and licenses in connection with the impacts of COVID-19. The second is an eminent domain procedure law determination and findings for the acquisition of property interests for the Jamaica Capacity Improvement Project. The following 3 transactional action items are for MTA New York City Transit. The third is a release renewal with 27-35 Jackson Avenue for office space housing transportation officers and flagging personnel at a building at the same address in Long Island City. The fourth is a lease renewal with Allied 60 Bay Street LLC for office space to house an occupational health services medical assessment center at 60 Bay Street in Staten Island. And the fifth is a lease with BDG Gotham Plaza for office space housing 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2 project team at 159 East 25th Street in Manhattan. The sixth and final transactional action item is for MTA Long Island Railroad and is a lease with Huntington Station Market for a travel convenience retail unit in the Huntington Station.
Okay. Any questions on the various real estate items? Just to be clear, we've bucketed them a little differently this month in your book, so you just can see what's transactional versus administrative versus just informational. Given there's a bit of a discussion, you'll see there's a report on eminent domain. It's just a report. It's not. We're not asking for any takings. So with that collection, since it's okay to take them as a group, can I have a motion for this real estate collection? Thank you. Second. Any comments, questions? None. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Any new business for the committee? Hearing none. Jake, I can tell you that you got to come here to a very exciting meeting. Adults have fun, and sometimes it can be relatively straightforward. Hearing none. Motion to adjourn. Okay, thank you all. See you next month. See you Wednesday, actually. Wednesday, okay, next month for this meeting. Wow.